Look around and you'll find that casinos seem to be popping up everywhere. And if that isn't enough, there's online gambling to tempt you even more. But for some people, the temptation turns into an addiction, which can slowly but surely destroy a family. Today on Family Matters, gambling addictions. Lots of people enjoy a night out at the casino as an occasional form of entertainment. But for an alarming number of people, the urge to gamble gradually overtakes them until they've become addicted. Family courts are seeing more and more cases where a spouse's gambling addiction has led to the financial and emotional ruin of the family unit. Why do some people develop addictive personalities? How do gambling addictions develop, and what can be done to prevent and treat them? I'm pleased to welcome my first guest, Dr. Richard Wood, who is a psychologist specializing in the study of gambling behavior. Welcome to the show, Dr. Wood.
Thank you.
You have studied the causes of gambling addictions and also the types of gambling behavior that can become addictive. Why do some people become addicted to gambling?
Well, there are a number of reasons why people get addicted to gambling. And we can broadly break these down into three areas, three pathways that people travel along that leads to a gambling problem. The first we would say is, we would classify as a normal problem gambler. And by that we mean that these people gamble socially, don't have any other underlying issues, but occasionally they gamble a little bit too much. They start to chase losses, the gambling gets a little out of control, they're trying to win that money back, and before they know it, they've got a problem. And these people are quite susceptible to treatment. They can be taught better ways of managing their gambling behavior.
So that's a normal problem gambler who lost a little bit too much and keeps trying to win it back.
Yeah, and they don't have any underlying issues. Then the second group of people with gambling problems we would call emotional problem gamblers. And these are probably the largest group of people with gambling problems. And for them, gambling really is a means of self-medication. And what they're doing is they're gambling to deal with more emotional issues. So maybe they're suffering from anxiety or depression, or perhaps it's the situation that they find themselves in at that point in time, maybe a marriage breakup.
But doesn't gambling cause anxiety? I mean, I've got to tell you, when I'm sitting in front of that slot machine and I'm not winning and I see my balance going down, I'm getting anxious.
Yeah, well, one of the things about gambling is that it can be a mood modifier. So people will gamble to be aroused, to escape from their everyday anxieties, because when they're gambling and they're in the moment, they forget about everything else.
So the second category are people who have an emotional problem that they're trying to medicate, to get relief from.
Yeah,
and what's the third group?
And the third group are biologically predisposed. So they may have a kind of underlying neurophysiological deficiency, which means that they tend to be more impulsive, they have a low boredom threshold, and they're looking for ways to feel stimulated and aroused. And
so you can be born with a predisposition to be a gambling addict?
Well, it looks as though some types of people do have some kind of underlying predisposition. We're not exactly sure what that is. There's some evidence that suggests it may be genetic, but it's very difficult to separate that from environmental issues as well. But certainly some people do appear to be more predisposed.
I've read some of your papers. You talk about gambling being an escape-based coping strategy.
Right.
What are they escaping?
People are escaping different things, and for some people it's that they're escaping the boredom of their everyday lives. For some people they're escaping depression, that they might be escaping anxiety, because when they're playing the game, they're in a different world. They forget about all their troubles. But the other thing that they're escaping is that as their gambling problem develops and they get into more debt and in more conflict, then they're actually escaping the problems that gambling causes.
Well, isn't the fear of losing money counterbalancing whatever it is that they're trying to escape? Well, because I've got to tell you that when I've gone to a casino and I lost, and I walk out of there a loser, which is almost always if I go, I feel terrible after. I'm angry with myself.
Yeah. Well,
so whatever enjoyment I had at the casino, I don't have anymore.
Yeah. The thing about losing is that losing can be very stimulating as well, because
in a good way.
Well, it's all about arousal, and the difference between winning and losing in terms of arousal can be very small. So, for example, a person who nearly wins can get almost as excited as somebody who actually wins. And some games actually deliberately play on this particular effect. So, for example, with a scratch card, a scratch ticket, you may have 1,000. You might scratch the first number off and it's $1,000. You scratch the second number off, it's $1,000. You scratch the third number off, it's $100. But for the person that's done that, that is a very rewarding experience, even though they actually haven't won. So even though somebody's actually losing, they're still getting very excited, and it still allows them to dissociate, to zone out, and forget about their problems for a while.
What kind of treatment is available for somebody who wants it? I guess you have to recognize you have a problem and want it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's crucial for treatment that the person wants to change. They have to be motivated to change. And there are lots of different options available. And I would say that there isn't one size fits all approach. So, you might have to try different approaches until you find the one that works for you.
Well, your website is?
GamTalk.org.
GamTalk.org.
Yeah.
And on that website, there's a huge amount of information that will assist people get support, and also group type support.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the treatment comes in many types of forms. There's sort of individual counselling treatment, cognitive behavioural therapy, where people work with an individual counsellor to help understand their underlying problems. Then there are group supports, things like Gamblers Anonymous, where people are part of a community. And then more and more there are self-help packages where people can go online and work through handbook materials. And then
it's clear that there's a lot of information out there, and they can start getting that information by going to your website. I want to thank you very much for being on our show, Dr. Wood. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we will meet a recovering gambling addict. Stay with us. Welcome back to our discussion of problem gambling. I'm pleased to welcome our next guest, Chris Parlow. Chris, welcome to the show.
Good to be here, Harvey.
Chris, you are a self-proclaimed and admitted recovering gambling addict.
Yes, I am.
Can you tell us your story? What happened to you?
Well, not unlike an awful lot of other people, I started out just wanting to have fun.
Right.
And I remember the brass rails leading up to the casino, and remember opening the doors and all the pomp and pageantry. And this happened back in 1989.
In 89?
In 89.
And what games did you play?
I played every game there, but primarily when I first started, I started at blackjack.
And how did you become an addict?
I became an addict because I couldn't get up when I sat down at a casino. It was just, I wanted to do everything I could to participate, and I couldn't stop. And,
was it right from the beginning, or did this kind of slowly creep up on you?
It was probably about a week later.
In a week?
Yes, within a week I was in trouble. It was only a couple years later I had to declare bankruptcy.
Did you have a job?
Yes, I did. I had a good job.
What was your job?
I had a job as president of United Steelworkers.
So how did you have time with a job like that to be gambling?
I made time. What I did was I planned, I strategized, I went into making my schedule accommodated, and I didn't have anything else in my life. What gambling did was I sacrificed everything as far as a personal life. I was engaged a couple times and I had to break off the engagements because I didn't like who I was and my life, so why would I invite anybody else into a life like that?
Did you manage to keep your addiction a secret?
I kept my addiction a secret until 2009. It was September 18th, so I started gambling in earnest in 1989, and it was 2009 in the middle of nowhere. A police officer found me, and I was about to take my life, and he asked what I was doing there, and I said I came here to die. And it was the first time I told anybody about who I was.
What drove you to the point that you wanted to commit suicide? Was it that you'd lost all your money?
I had many days when I wanted to end my life. One of the things about being a pathological gambler is you lose everything. You lose all your wealth, your money, your property, but most importantly, you lose your spirit.
So how did you bring yourself to the point where you're at now?
Well, when the police officer asked me what I was doing there, and I told him I came here to die, it was the first time in 20 years I'd ever told anybody who I really was and what I was doing. So what he said is, we're going to get you some help. And he took me to the Kingston Hospital, and I was in the psych ward for 4 days. And then following that, I came back to home, and I got help because I asked for it. It was the first time in my life I was ever one to ask for help.
And what help did you get?
I got help from a addictions counselor. I got help from my family. I got help from other healthcare providers, including a psychiatrist. And currently I'm still getting the help. And it was only possible because I shared who I really was. I decided not to fly under the radar anymore and live a secret life. I came out of the shadows, and I thought to myself, this is the only way I can live, is if I share.
What do you think it was about your personality or your life that drew you to gambling to such an extent?
Well, I started gambling at a young age. We'd be playing tetherball on the playground, and we'd be playing for Mr. Freezes and that sort of thing. So I was always competitive.
Yeah.
So,
but that's true of many kids.
Yeah, sure. And what evolved from there, I'm not a doctor. I can't say exactly what all the reasons are for my illness, but I can tell you when I sat down at a casino, I couldn't get up. And
even if you were losing?
Even when I was losing, I would lose everything, and I still couldn't get up. And the thing about us pathological gamblers is that even when we've lost everything, we'll still walk out of the casino with our head held high, because we don't want anybody to know the pain we're really going through. So I would walk out of the casino with my head held high, heading back to a life that I didn't know what I was going to do now. I lost everything again. So now what am I going to do?
So after you got the emotional support that you needed, and you also got some therapy, was it easy to stop?
No. Every day I go ahead and am challenged by the gambling opportunities that are out there, whether at your local grocery store or whether at a gas kiosk. You always see that there's opportunities to gamble. Right now I can't, for example, go into Tim Hortons because they have roll up the rim to win, and I can't take a chance on winning anything, because if I do, I know I'll die.
Even if you buy one coffee?
Even if I buy one coffee.
And there's that contest that you roll up the rim
That's
of
right.
the top of the cup.
That's right.
And you can't get another cup unless you buy another coffee.
I would never buy the first one. It's like an alcoholic. One drink is one too many and 1,000 is not enough. One game of chance is one too many and 1,000 would never be enough.
What do you have to say to people in our remaining moments? I really think this is a golden opportunity for people who are watching who may be on the brink of letting gambling take over their life. Tell them what you want to tell them.
I would share with them that share. Please open up to your family, to close ones, and let them know that you need help. This is an illness that's progressive in nature, and we can't do it alone. We need help, and I tried to do it alone, and one of the things I discovered was that it's not possible. You need help, and that's the only way that you can have hope.
Chris, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. It was very brave of you. I don't know whether you are used to appearing on television, but I think your message is a very poignant one. You're a very brave man. I wish you the very best. And I'll make you a coffee at my house so you don't have to go to Tim's.
Well, it's nice to share because at one time I would have never dreamed of having this opportunity.
Well, thank you for doing that. We will be right back after this break. We will go in chambers with lawyer Victoria Starr. Stay with us. We're now in chambers with family law lawyer, arbitrator, and mediator Victoria Starr. Victoria, thank you for being on our show.
Thank you for having me.
We've been talking about gambling on the show, but what do the courts have to say about gambling addicts? Do they see it as an illness?
Well, the courts really don't delve into gambling too much. It doesn't come up all that often. But they generally see gambling as quasi-illness, one with fault undertones, choice undertones.
A quasi-illness with fault and choice undertones. What does that mean?
Well, it means sort of it's your fault that you are a gambling addict,
right,
and it's your choice. It's the choices you made that got you there. And then on top of that, it's your choice. You have a choice about the level of control you exercise and whether you get help. So it's not quite as extreme as an illness where you have no control. They're not prepared. They're very uncomfortable with this concept of not taking responsibility or not being responsible because you don't have control over it.
Well, I guess from a public policy perspective, we don't want to see courts sanctioning this kind of conduct because it can, if it gets out of control, gambling can really destroy a family.
That's right, and you see that theme come up over and over again in what case law we do have about this, where the judges are saying we don't want to incentivize gambling.
Right.
But even more so, you know, if you allow, for example, a gambler to pay less in support or not pay up any arrears that they owe and money that they owe towards back support, then you're really having the recipients, the child and the other spouse, subsidize that gambling behavior. And even more so in terms of public policy, we have a policy pretty much across the country that children come first.
So when we do see a gambling addict in family court, what kinds of situations, for example, with respect to property, you know, when you separate, you're supposed to divide your property. What if one of them is a gambling addict and has blown all the family assets?
Well, this does come up quite a bit in the sense that, so the amount that one spouse may get, so the non-gambling spouse, she or he may get more or less depending on the amount of debt that the other spouse has. So if a gambler has a lot less money and a lot of debt, then the other recipient may not get as much. So that seems quite unfair, and the recipient or the non-gambling spouse can ask the court to readjust the division of the assets and the debts.
So you could get more than the law would otherwise have given you?
Exactly.
So if you're supposed to get half, but your spouse squandered a whole bunch of assets, you could ask the judge to give you more than 50% to make up for it?
You could ask the judge to give you more than 50% to make up for it. And the problem with that is that the test, you know, it's not just recreational gambling that the court would recognize. So if you want to convince a judge that you should get more than the typical 50%,
right,
then you're going to have to meet what's called, we call it in family law, a threshold of unconscionability, or a better way to describe it is outrageous. The gambling behavior has to be outrageous gambling, more than just, you know, using the surplus money that
But
the
that's
family
usually
has.
what we see with an addict. You know, someone who's just constantly at the casino or online. And what about whether the non-gambling partner knew about it? Does that matter?
That's really important. In fact, if you suspect that your partner is a gambler, you should know that if you're asking for an unequal division down the road, the court is going to scrutinize the level of knowledge that you had. Did you know, should you have known that your spouse was gambling and squandering the family assets and income? And it's not just enough to know. You also have to have done something about it, so you have to object to it.
Well, what kind of action can they take?
Well, if you suspect your spouse has a gambling issue or an addiction, the first thing you should do is object, object, object. Right?
So speak up.
Speak up. You need to say, I don't want you spending the money. I don't want you liquidating that. Number two, you need to immediately start to take steps to protect your assets. So for example, if you have joint bank accounts, you need to get the money out of the joint accounts before it gets squandered.
Should a person go see a lawyer?
A person should definitely see a lawyer right away, because there is also what we call a non-dissipation order. So you can ask the court to make an order that would essentially freeze or prevent the spouse from getting rid of the rest of the assets. Very important.
So anything jointly owned, you have to right away get that money.
That's right, get that money. But even more important, or equally as important, is you need to go out there and cap the lines of credit. So if you have lines of credit with a balance outstanding, with a balance available that's significant,
right,
you need to speak immediately with your financial advisor or your banker to see if you can get it capped, see if you can withdraw your consent to further withdrawals of money from that account, because there's nothing worse than, you have a $50,000 line of credit that you were going to use for renovations and your spouse suddenly withdraws it all, because you're on the hook for that.
So it's really important to know something about your family finances. I say this to you because I've seen cases where one partner comes home one day and there's no electricity and all of the money's gone, and they had no clue that their spouse, who was managing all the family finances, wasn't paying any bills at all and was squandering all this money at the casino.
That's right. In fact, it goes, no matter who you are, whether you have a spouse who's a gambling addict or anything, you should always know what your family finances are. You should never just take your spouse's word for it. Get involved, watch for cash withdrawals, and keep things.
And be vigilant.
And be vigilant.
All
Always
right.
be vigilant.
I hope everybody got the message. Victoria, thank you so much for being on our show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hi, I'm Lorraine Mclean. Today on Q&A, our question is, I think my spouse is alienating my children from me. What can I do? Some experts say parental or child alienation happens routinely in high-conflict divorces. Other experts say it's rare. More commonly, a child rejects a parent when a number of factors involving both parents' behaviors exist. An alienated child expresses persistent, unreasonably negative feelings and beliefs, even fear and hatred towards a parent that they previously had a healthy relationship with. Conversely, an estranged child's refusal to see a parent may be reasonable because that parent has parenting capacity issues such as anger management, substance abuse, or mental health issues. Don't delay. Immediate legal intervention to counsel the family, and in severe cases to even reverse custody, is key. Remember, an alienated child does not just have an unhealthy relationship with the rejected parent, they have an equally unhealthy relationship with the custodial one.
Thanks for watching. For extended interviews and exclusive content, please visit our website at familymatterstv.com. If you'd like to submit your legal question to our Q&A, go to advicescene.com. I'm Justice Harvey Brownstone. See you next time.